Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of The Digital Diaries. Many of you listening work in tech, and one of the great privileges of working in tech is a nice high income with high earning potential. Yet, myself included, and many others, we struggle to capitalize on our income and often find ourselves looking for that next deal that brings in 20, 50, 100K even. Such is the story of our next guest, who had a hugely successful career in Salesforce to great heights, but frustrated with not capitalizing on it. He went on a mission to help himself and others become a millionaire. Now a qualified financial advisor, Sjoerd Bak is a former sales director from Salesforce, having worked in SaaS in the Benelux region. And this story is about how you can develop an income strategy. And he's already helped over 300 people build wealth. Zero commissions, zero conflict of interest. I'm excited to learn more. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Peter.
Give us a little bit of your background before we get in, and let's understand how you moved from sales leader into the world of finance and wealth building.
Yes, thank you. So I didn't grow up around wealth. I didn't know that you could do anything else besides saving and investing, or saving and spending, actually. And I used to save to spend. So what happened was I rolled into sales like most people do. You don't really go into sales with the intention of doing that, but then you end up in a career that actually pays really well, but it's also high pressure. So you feel like you need to reward yourself and you get to splurge on a lot of things. And that's what I've been doing for the first 14 years of my career. And then I've kind of come to the realization that, well, wait a minute, I'm earning about 4 times the national average. I shouldn't feel broke all the time. So that's when I started doing some research, figured out, okay, if I can keep more of what I earn by spending less and save that money instead, I can buy my future self freedom. And that's what I did, and what I started helping my colleagues to set up as well.
Really, really interesting stuff. So before we get into processes and stuff, talk us through that moment, like, knowing you're earning 4 times the national average, like that one hand must feel good. But then the flip side, you're like, I've been earning all this money. Was there frustration, anger behind it? Or was it just like, I've got to do something different?
I have to do something different. Like we were on a trip to Washington, D.C., I remember in 2019. And I remember the budget I had left for that trip was the amount of credit I'd left on my credit card. And I thought, there has to be a better way than this. I should be doing something better. And then I thought investing was complicated. I thought managing your money was difficult, and it was about timing and picking winners, and that I had to find someone who was skilled enough to do that for me. And then I've come to the realization that, okay, it can be pretty simple. And if you just understand the basics, you can do a lot yourself.
So let's start with that then, the basics. What do you call the basics, and where did you start on your journey?
Yeah, so let's start with, like, what are the 4 things that are keeping people stuck? And because if we fix those 4, we're winning. So the first one is spending too much. And spend, like, if you earn a lot but you spend a lot, if you earn 10,000 euros per month and you spend 10,000 euros per month, you're always going to be broke. So the first mistake people make is they spend everything they earn. The second then is they have what I call lazy money. So lazy money is money that is not working for you. So if you don't make the first mistake, then you build up a pile of cash. But if you leave that sitting in a bank account or a credit union where it's not working for you, it's actually losing money because of inflation every single year. And then the third is also very common, which is the dip in, dip out trap. It's buying something, watching it grow 10%, then selling it, and then starting to buy something else. And you're basically continuously interrupting that compounding growth. But this is what I used to think investing was. It is spotting something worth buying it at the right time for the right price, selling it at the right time for the right price, and then starting all over again with something new. And now I've come to realize that you just need to find something that you feel comfortable holding forever, that you feel comfortable will grow in value, and then hold it forever. And that's giving it time to grow. That's the most important thing. And then the fourth is not earning enough. And a lot of the people in tech, the fourth is not their biggest problem, but that's where they focus all of their attention. It's how do I get promoted? How do I close bigger deals? How do I get into management? How do I make more money? But if you do that without fixing the other three, you're always going to be depending on someone paying you a salary. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the cycle that I want to help people disrupt.
I love that. And I want to be really explicit about inflation before we move on to the next bit. So for
Yes.
context listeners, if inflation is at a rate of 5%, what €100,000 buys you today will only buy you €95,000 worth in 1 year's time. Your money literally decreases in value. So all your hard-earned work is lost by this. So this is where you come in and we recognize it. Why do you think it's so easy for people to go to, I want to earn more money? Because it seems like, you see people on this hamster wheel and they're constantly climbing up and up and up and up. But much like the popular show on Apple TV, Your Friends and Neighbors, you might have a big house in Long Island and drive a Maserati. But as he said, I'm leveraged. It just means I'm in debt and I have nice things.
Yeah. Yeah. Your money is tied up in your stuff. Like, I think it's just a default setting. So, like, most of the people I speak with, they don't come from a wealthy background. Most people in sales, like, it's the first generation that actually starts earning really good money.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like me, they just know, okay, that's there to spend. It's there to have a good time with. But they don't realize the potential that they're leaving on the table by not investing some of that money at least.
I see. So tell us then, like you had that realization, you went off and learned it, but you tried to share your knowledge with your colleagues. How receptive were they to it? Because surely they were like, well, I'm making loads of money, so I've nothing to worry about.
Yes. So that's a very good question because not everybody is receptive to this. And I also need to like that's kind of the realization that I came to. Not everybody wants to be better with money. Some people love being spenders and that's okay. Like I'm all for it and I love hearing people spend extravagantly on the things they love. But when I was doing sessions in my where I was working, I did become a millionaire sessions, and the people actually loved it. Everybody who attended it thought this is amazing. This actually
Hmm.
helps me build a financial future, and it's not just financial advice selling financial products.
Hmm.
But the wider organization didn't really agree with it because and which is fine because it wasn't my role. I wasn't a qualified financial advisor, and so I decided to become a qualified financial advisor and make it my role.
And look, that's really interesting because I think even as you're saying it, there was that financial illiteracy is one of the biggest problems in the world. And I've been on a very similar journey. I'm not a QFA, but in terms of learning about it, and what has also happened for us as a generation is what I will call as the accessibility of financial products. Like just I use eToro personally. I'm not saying it's the best app ever, but there are dozens and upon dozens of these very easy to set up trading platform apps that give us access to things we would otherwise maybe have been intimidated before, and perhaps the generation before us were that, you had to go and meet someone dressed up in a suit and tie just to find out how they can invest your money and take a cut to do it for you.
Yeah. And
So,
that
so
was
go
part
ahead.
of my frustration when because throughout my career I met with every financial advisor that came into work. So every time I
Hmm.
got the opportunity to meet with a financial advisor, I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's see what they can teach me about money. And I was always disappointed with the results because I always felt like they were trying to sell me a product, not
Hmm.
necessarily help me build anything. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the opposite of what I want to do now because most people in tech, they don't need a mortgage. They don't need more insurance. They don't need a new pension plan. They just need to make sure that they understand what they have and how to best put that to good use. And if they understand those things, and then when they do need a mortgage, speak to a mortgage advisor, but don't rely on someone who's selling you a mortgage to teach you how to build wealth.
Yeah, it's really interesting about even understanding the roles because I had another guest on a few months ago who was a former agency recruiter, and she said never think an agency recruiter's job is to get you a job. And then equally, as you're saying, with these financial advisors or financial people in various companies, they're often coming with trying to sell a product. And while the information they might share is accurate, it can be really intimidating, because the first realization I think that stuns everyone is how much we spend on entertainment, or what retirement looks like if we were to spend what we spend on the weekend 7 days a week. It's like, well, I'm not going to be able to afford that. And well, you want me to take this much money out of my day to day and go, like, there is a real fear in that moment. And you've got to overcome that. Do you kind of counsel people through that process? And is that what you're doing now in terms of helping people empower themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I have to be crystal clear. Like, I don't think financial advisors are bad people. They're just operating in a bad system that
Hmm.
is geared for the banks, for the insurance companies, but not for the people that are investing. So when I start working with people, the first thing we look at is their spending. Because if you want to take control of your finances, it has to start with your spending. Because if you can bring down your spending, one, you need less to become financially independent. Two, you're able to save and invest more. And three, you get there 3 times quicker.
Yeah.
But most people don't think about it like that. They think about, okay, teach me how to invest. How can I best invest? What is the what is the best way to invest in the market? But what they don't realize is the best way is investing twice as much, because you can optimize your investments by 1 or 2%, or you can invest twice as much and twice as long, and then you get exponentially better results. So it's not necessarily about the actual tactics of investing, it's about the wider financial picture and their attitude to money.
Yeah, I remember my kind of aha moment with this was I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad and its follow-up book, The Cashflow Quadrant. And he
Yeah.
said most people don't have an income problem, they have a spending problem. And I took a spending diary, and the amount of money that just leaked out of my bank account. Now, well, I'm
Uh,
not talking mega money, but like on a monthly basis, it might be 200 or 300 quid, which is a lot in anybody's house. Think what your mortgage is. This is like 10% of your mortgage or 20% of your mortgage, depending on what you're paying. This is really, really a lot of money that you're just not thinking of. While I love a good coffee, coffee is a luxury item in Dublin city centre.
yeah, and like at the same time, you also need to spend on what you love. So if you love good
Yes.
coffee, spend on good coffee, but then figure out what are the other things that I can cut back on. And so one of the first things I do with every single person I work with is to get them to look at their spending, go back 1 month before we started working together to see what their actual spend was. So first I have them guess what it was, then I have them look at exactly what it was, and often it's twice as much. And
Mhm.
then to do 1 month in real time. Just that manual tracking process does magic to your brain when it comes to insights about your money, because you instantly know where it goes. And you instantly know how you feel about it as well, which is great.
It is. And, it kind of, I think it is that awakening. And there's a sense of empowerment going, okay, well, this is where my money's going. And now I can control it. And I know, as someone who used to clear a credit card all the time, to moving to not clearing a credit card all the time and only using it for larger purchases for cash. The sense I feel when I go to like a Michelin star restaurant and order a nice bottle of wine now, when I'm paying cash, I say cash, I'm paying on card, but money I have is totally different. The overall experience is much better, because I'm like, I have a right to be here. I know a lot of people are like, of course, go on credit. Nobody's stopping you, but it's so much more enjoyable to walk out, because what happened all the time whenever I bought a luxury purchase like that is I had buyer's remorse afterwards. And I was disappointed that, God, that's going to sit in the credit card. And now next month's going to be tight because of this. And it is about kind of nearly like putting your hands out and stopping and going, I'm going to get control of this. So you took it a step further, and you wanted to bring in an AI coaching business in your operation. How are you incorporating this, and what does the day to day look like for you as you help people become a millionaire?
Yeah, like I'm still figuring this out, because as far as I know, not many people have done this in Ireland.
Hmm.
Like it's different from traditional advice. I am a qualified financial advisor, but I'm also studying to become a certified financial planner to take it to the next level. But what I do is I post tips on LinkedIn. I write a weekly newsletter, and then I just coach people. I have intro calls on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And then when those people decide, yeah, this is something I want to work with, we go into a 3-month coaching engagement where in the first month, we just tackle everything. We look at their spending, their saving, their investing, everything
Mm-hmm.
that I've done. So I share all my figures, I share my funds, my results, and then we set up the same for them, or they set up the same for them with my guidance along the way. And that's what I do now every single day. It's very enjoyable. I enjoy this a lot more than selling software.
Well, I mean, that's nearly blasphemy on this podcast, but we'll move on from.
Well, after 18 years, of selling, I think it was time for something new, and I was super
Okay, it's
happy to have
individual
figured
then.
this out.
We'll allow it on that basis. What is the consistent shock moment when you go through that? Like, I do a lot of coaching myself, and every so often you hit on that one question, and it can vary depending on who you're talking to. But what kind of theme are you seeing that someone goes, this is like a bucket of ice cold water over them when they kind of go silent and go, I had no idea, or what's that look like for you?
Yeah, so the thing that immediately comes to mind is the spending.
Yeah.
When they go away after the first session, they go and track their spending, and they come into the next session, and every single one of them says, my God, I didn't know I spent X on X. And X is always something different. It could be lunches for someone, it could be coffees, it could be Ubers, it could be Rolexes, but everyone has something that they don't value at all, that they didn't really realize that they spent so much money on. And the second is when they figure out how much money they're leaving on the table by not optimizing their stock purchase plan,
Hmm.
or by leaving shares invested that are actually losing money every single day, by not
Hmm.
optimizing their pension, by not doing their additional pension voluntary contributions and claiming back thousands in tax relief. And those things are a lot of fun to discover alongside those clients.
I remember that moment for myself as you're describing it. And it's quite an empowering moment for a person to go, I have more control over this than I realize, you know? Now, we talked a lot about success. Is there anything you've tried that just hasn't worked, whether it's an investment, automation tool that you just kind of go, no, that wasn't a good idea, or it wasn't what I thought it would be?
When it comes to investing or like my own finances,
Yeah, your own experiences slash investing. So kind of what was the thing that while you're on this journey that kind of didn't work out for you?
that's a good question. Maybe to give you a bit of context, when I, yeah, I know one. So
Hmm.
when I started out, this was peak COVID panic. So I figured
Hmm.
all this stuff out at the start of 2020. And it was March 2020 that I was ready to go. I was ready to invest in the wider stock market. I read the Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins, and that opened my eyes to everything. And then what happened was I sold all my Salesforce shares
Hmm.
on the 3rd of March, the day before the trading window closed. And because I realized, okay, I can easily diversify by just buying the entire stock market. I don't want to hold shares in a company that also pays my salary. And then in the next 5 months, the share price doubled. And I thought, crap, what did I do? And then like eventually the market caught up and the market surpassed it. And like I've wildly outperformed what it would have been had I kept those shares. But
Hmm.
back then it was scary.
Yeah, it's really ringing through what Warren Buffett says about this is that, you can't watch the day to day. You have to watch the trend over time. And like in the current state of the world right now, if you're monitoring a day to day with all that's going on in the Middle East, you will pull your hair out with stress and anxiety, and you'll fundamentally lose money. Because I often hear people go, "Oh, it's quick trades," and I'm like, "That's not a strategy. You just got lucky if that happened. It's kind of like betting on a horse. Yeah, you might have made a profit, but is it really a strategy that builds wealth? And certainly one of my big motivations is not just for me, but it's to kind of set the kids up with kind of this is how to live, not so as that they don't have to work, but so as they understand much better financial practices. I mean, I must have shares in Heineken and Guinness at this stage, and many a wine company, while they took part in my liver, and
Yeah.
if I look back, I probably would have done some of those things differently. I remember one eye opening night, I spent 250 quid on a night out in Ranelagh. And I just said, there's no way I drank 250 quid's worth of booze. I was very generous when I was drunk. So I was like, need to rein this in. But sticking with your coaching, given what you do you think that AI could step in and do what you do? Or do you think it needs the personal touch of two people sitting down over a coffee, writing things out in pen and paper?
So yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, you can do so much with AI.
Hmm.
I've people come to me showing me their plans they've made with AI, and like, I think this is amazing. So yes, AI can make you a plan, but it's also riddled with mistakes for now. So there's mistakes of how you allocate assets, or it takes tax rules from last year into consideration, or they do things in the wrong order where, like, if you would have done it the other way around, you would have had better results. So yes, AI can build you an amazing plan, but you do need to fully understand what it does and what it says to be able to execute on it for the next 40 years. Because that's the thing with this personal finance stuff, and this is the thing most people struggle with, is it's not saving. Saving is easy to understand. You save for
Hmm.
3, 5 years, you save towards a wedding, a car, a mortgage, whatever it is, and then you have that money and then you spend it. It's easy to wrap your head around. Whereas investing, people treat it as saving for 3 to 5 years, but it should be for when you no longer earn. And
Hmm.
if your time horizon is like that, then you can weather any storm. But it also means that every decision you make, like 1% difference over 30, 40 years, could be hundreds of thousands of euros. So that's why you want to be
Hmm.
crystal clear on what you're doing. And you want to make sure that there's someone who's at least looked at this with you, so that you are comfortable and confident executing on this plan for a very long time.
Yeah, it's really, really important to kind of drive on these things. And it's such a great point you make about AI, because it touches in every industry. We go, AI replaced jobs, and planes are being flown by computers. Technically true, but pilots still need to step in. Vibe coders, vibe coding is great, but developers still need to be there to oversee it, to maintain it. What if something goes wrong? We can't put 100% reliance in this. And kind of as you're saying, the comprehension underneath this as to what happens and what it means is so, so important. And one of the biggest misconceptions I see, and this is very Irish in my opinion, is the whole just buy a house, property always goes up. The reason I find that so absurd is, one of my younger colleagues was, it's like, oh, will I buy in town? Will I buy out? And just buy, it'll be worth more in such and such 2 years' time. You've made all that profit. And I'm like, assuming it goes up and nothing goes pear-shaped in the market, you still have the entire mortgage debt, which is probably where the profit break-even point is at. So you haven't made a profit. And I also think kind of bringing back to inflation is a really interesting point. People, go, boomers bought their house for 30 grand. I'm like, yeah, they did in 1970. Like, we've had a currency change for Christ's sake in the meantime.
Yeah.
The gold standard was retired. So it's very, very different in terms of what you're comparing and what you're not. And I think there are a lot of variables in there that people need to be extremely mindful of. Want to get your take on a hot topic that I hear a lot of people talk about this, and I'll frame it with my own personal story. So my wife and I rented in Slorgan before we bought, and we had rented 1 year where we live out in Greystones. And we bought out here because we were fortunate at the time. We got approved for a mortgage, but we took significantly less on the basis of, if something happens, one of us gets sick, one of us gets laid off, we can find a single income. That was the goal that we set at the time. The mortgage difference we paid versus what we were offered, we could have paid another double. We could have literally been repaying them double from what they offered us. And there, that sounds great. And we could have had I could have lived much closer to Dublin city centre than where I do, but we stayed that way. Obviously, today's market, that's a bit impractical for many people, even in tech.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about kind of the mortgage control, maybe buying a little further out, maybe not buying in the exact area that you want, or not buying the newest house, or not adding all the mod cons to live a little bit more simply? And I'm not talking about, poverty lines here of shelter, but maybe you don't need the smart home, I'll say, put it that way. Do you see any trade-off in there that people could make as a big as a potential saving, given, as you say, over the course of a life of a 30, 35-year mortgage, that could be huge?
It's a great question. And it comes back to the coffee situation we discussed before. Like you can save on €4 coffees and you'll save 1,200 euros a year. Or you could buy a less expensive house and pay a lower mortgage for the next 30 years. So I always say to my clients is buy the house you need or the home you need, not the house you can afford. Because the biggest problems I've seen with salespeople are people who overextended when buying their homes and are paying 4,000 or 5,000 euros per month in mortgages. If one of the salary goes, they're in trouble. And you have to pay that for 30 years, which means that you have to make that kind of money for 30 years. And that's a lot of pressure to put yourself under. And it's not just the mortgage that is high. When you live in a neighborhood that requires you to get a 4,000 to 5,000 euro mortgage, you are going to be around cars that are more expensive. Your kids are going to go to school with kids that are wearing different kind of clothes, and birthday parties, shopping, your supermarket, everything gets more expensive. So it's not just the mortgage. Your whole lifestyle gets elevated. And it makes it very difficult to build up any type of wealth when you're just working to pay the bills.
Firstly, I was genuinely stunned. I didn't think people were paying that high because, I know of a former colleague, a current colleague, actually, should I say, who bought their house in 2018, 19, and since then has moved twice within the same area. And the cost of change of a house, and they drive luxury car, I'm like, there's a lot of money going on nothing here.
Yeah. And a lot of the people I speak with are also people from outside of Ireland who are in a tech job in Ireland, and they want to understand, okay, how can I manage my finances the best here? And they're all wondering, should I be wasting all this money on rent, or should I buy something and as an investment? Because then I'm no longer paying somebody else's mortgage. But then you're just paying the bank, because the first couple of years you're hardly paying off anything of your down payment. There's costs associated with buying and with selling. Becoming a landlord in Ireland is not very attractive. You pay very high rates of tax on the rent. So I always say, unless you know you're going to be living here for at least the next 5 years, I recommend to just keep renting, because it's the pain of buying a home and then becoming a landlord in a country where you might not necessarily want to live anymore is not great.
No, and that's a fascinating point. I mean, two things is the liability factor. You're renting, you're liable for next month's rent. At the end of the day, that's all you're liable for. But then conversely, from the landlord side, under current laws, and it was something I had fancied, was getting a second property. And I'm really put off it because you can't evict someone for 6 years under recent law changes. Now, I'm not saying people should be kicked out on the street. That's not the position at all. But I will say, if someone is defaulting more than 6 months with no structured payment plan, there is an element of, well, I need to be compensated and I can't afford to finance this twice. And, there has to be, well, we get into the bigger housing crisis there, but there is an element of this can't work both ways. And it's kind of to your point of massive, massive pressure. And I love people to kind of project further about the things they truly care about as well, and understand where they actually want their money to go. Because you make such a great point on the lifestyle. Like, that just blows my mind, because, you know, I even think as well, like, say, kids' birthday parties. You know, where my kids are in school, if they go, one parent collects a fiver per kid. We just put all the fibers in a card, and the kid goes to toy shop and buys whatever they want. But in perhaps higher lifestyle areas, that could be 50 quid per kid's birthday party.
Yeah.
You know,
That's exactly it.
massive difference.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, everything inflates, and it's so important to be aware of that. It's not just the mortgage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually with the cars, one I think that's really important is, if you buy luxury brand cars, you must luxury brand maintain. So even the cost of running the car becomes more expensive. It's higher value. You have to get, you know, Mercedes or BMW parts specific if anything comes in. All this is dominoed in
I
terms of
found
the
that out the hard
expenditure.
way, by the way.
So did I on a Volvo.
When I was in Oracle with my first big paycheck, I bought a BMW X5 because I had to show the world that I had arrived. But the world didn't care. But now all of a sudden I had to pay 1,500 euros in road tax. I had to pay 1,500 euros worth of tires. I didn't really take that into consideration. I still love driving that car and I don't regret it, but it wasn't the most sensible financial decision.
Yeah, like I bought two brand new cars. So one for me, one for my wife, and well, her one was the newer, but it's already gone because it had an issue. But we both said we'd never do that again in terms of a brand new car. We just feel we lost too much money on them, and it absolutely wasn't there.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to give one little challenge, okay? So lovely, kind of structure here, okay? You've got an area. It sounds, if I may, very similar to what the likes of Dave Ramsey might say. What makes your approach a little bit different in terms of how you help your clients?
So I don't think it's a little bit different. I think it's very different. So I think
Hmm.
we look at the full picture, and then in 3 months, we set up everything they need to do, but also making sure that they understand every step of the way. So one of the biggest mistakes when I started out was that I thought people want, like, I read books by Alex Hormozy, and I thought people want results fast. So I thought I'll just give everything I have to tell in 90 minutes, and then people are on their way and they can do everything that I was able to do. And then when I followed up with those people, I realized they didn't do anything because it was so much to take on board in one session that then they didn't end up doing anything. So now what we do is we do it step by step. So we tackle the spending first, then we go into the theory behind investing, then we invest one step at a time,
Hmm.
optimize the pension, do the tax refunds, and then figure out, do we want to invest outside of the pension? What does that look like? Do you want to invest in ETFs or stocks? What do you want to do with your company stocks? And we take it one step at a time so that everything actually gets done and they feel calm and confident about everything they're doing because they're understanding it fully. And this is
Hmm.
not, it's not a one-time fix because it's the start of a 30-year financial freedom journey. It's something that they should be able to do forever, so they should fully understand it. And that's where I help out. It's to help them actually implement the stuff. Like, all the information is out there. AI, books, podcasts, everything is available. People, it's the same with fitness. That's why I work with a personal trainer, because there's so much out there. I need to figure out, okay, what is it for me? And how do I implement it? Why do I do it that way? And then actually go and do it.
Yeah, it's a great one with fitness, and I frequently talk about it because, as well, your fitness goals and mine may be very different. Or, you know, for instance, this year I'm doing a marathon, so my focus, strength training is reduced, not gone, but reduced, and I'm focused on running more and more.
That's what I did
So,
last year.
gluttons for punishment. How did you
That's
do?
a
Did you do the
horrible.
Dublin Marathon?
I did the Lisbon Marathon the day before the Dublin Marathon. But because Dublin was
Nice.
full, Dublin was full, and I did a 20-week training program for the Dublin Marathon, and then I just picked a marathon that was close to it, and it was horrible. My legs wouldn't switch on the day, so I was aiming for 4 hours, and I did it in 5.5, and it was 5.5 hours of slow torture.
Anyone who's done a run, anyone who's a runner who's done a race will know what happened, because you can go out on 2 days equally trained, and one day the sun is on your back and the breeze is pushing you, and other days it's just, I did the
Yeah, it
Wicklow
was
half recently and it was just uphill, for 20
horrible.
kilometers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mine, it was like cycling with a flat tire, like, but then running for 5.5 hours. A lot of chafage. I won't do one again soon.
Look, you're very action focused in what you're talking about. Take a mirror image of yourself, someone 20 years younger, Steve Orr starting out in one of the tech companies. What would you like them to do today to start on the roads to greater financial security and stability and freedom?
Yes. When I started out, I thought they would be my ideal customer because they have so much potential, because they are rich in time. And time has the biggest impact on your wealth. But I also quickly found out that SDRs and BDRs have very different priorities,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a very important good life to live. But what if I were to give them any tip, it's one, start tracking,
Mm-hmm.
because if once you understand your spending compared to your income and your savings rate, that's where you can make the biggest difference. And then start investing. Start small and then gradually start increasing that over time. Because if you're in your early 20s, like any 100 euro invested in your 20s is going to be many thousands in retirement. So
Mm-hmm.
if you can just get into the habit early, make sure you take advantage of the pension tax relief, like those things in your 20s will make a massive difference. And the thing is, in your 40s, if you're still in sales,
Mm-hmm.
most people that I speak to that are in their 40s in sales are not super happy to be doing that for the next 20 years. And they wish that they want options. They want to do something they feel more passionate about. But the options they have are the direct results of the actions they take in their 20s and 30s. And
Mm-hmm.
if you just take your finances seriously throughout your 20s and 30s, and it shouldn't be about deprivation or frugality, but just making sure the basics are there, you understand your spending, you understand how much you're investing, you understand how you're invested, it makes such a massive difference later in life, so that you have
Mm-hmm.
options when you're ready to have those options. When you get kids and you want to spend more time with them, you don't want to deal with the mandatory office days, etc. It's good to have those options.
Yeah, completely. So some people listening might think this is all just about, dare I say it, the money and you selling your services. But I know that it's not. And I know from the conversations I've had offline. What do you think? And maybe this is a project I'm going to give you as I ask this question, introducing financial education to primary and secondary school kids to help them understand the basics. How, because honestly, I feel when a kid is 18 and finishes school in Ireland, they haven't a clue about money.
Yeah, same for me. And for a long time, I said this stuff should be taught in schools. But
Yes.
now I've come to realize if BDRs and SDRs don't care about it, then like teenagers are
How
not
do we
going to
get
care
kids
about.
too?
Like it's like when I started out in sales and my manager told me to join a business objects training, and I was being taught how to create reports, but I've never created a report in my life. So like nothing I was shown resonated because it was so also alien to me, and that's what would happen to kids as well. But like just the compound interest, and if we can get that into kids early enough. And what I would want to say to parents is like what parents are concerned about is, how do I save for my kids?
Hmm.
But I don't think that that's the most important thing, because if you give your kids a big pot of money by the time they're 18, they're just going to waste it. But what they would need
Yep,
most,
done that.
yeah. What they need most is financial skills. And what's super important is that they don't do what you say, they do what you do. So if you want your kids to have a better relationship with money and show them what good money management looks like.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. And as you were saying it, when you say the money disappeared, because I did get, you know, modest money in grand scheme of things, but big to an 18-year-old,
Yeah.
18 to 22-year-old a few times. It disappears in seconds. Money is very easy to spend,
Yeah.
but also once it's spent, it's gone. So, like, it's not, I wouldn't regret the things that I bought, but I might have reconsidered how I bought them or when I bought them or how quickly I bought them as a result of that. And, it echoes that old adage of give a man to fish, feed him today, teach him to fish, feed him for life. If we educate our kids the right way in terms of how to generate money and protect for the future, I'll think twice about, buying AirPods Max that are 600 quid. Like that's a lot of money for a pair of headphones.
Yeah.
Okay, so last thing, and we'll let you go. It's been a fantastic conversation. It's been really insightful, and I think your journey is excellent. People who want to take control of their finances and set their own future up for success want to get in touch with you. What's the best way for them to get in touch with Stuart?
Yeah. So they could, easiest way is probably just send me a message on LinkedIn. So I write daily posts on LinkedIn. I write a weekly newsletter. I have some free guides to share with people on how to claim tax back, how to manage your ESPP, your RSUs and stuff like that. So just send me a message on LinkedIn or go to my website.
Nice. We will put them in the show notes. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. You've been a fantastic guest. It's been a great
Thank you
conversation.
for having me.
My pleasure. Have a lovely day. Thank you.
You too. Thanks.